Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Before we jump into the content, let's do a little roll call. Where do you live? Are you in the United States? If so, what state are you in? And if you don't live in the United States, tell us what country you're in and what part of the country you're in. I know we have viewers from around the world who watch this channel, and I love it. I love the variety of people who come and comment in the channel and find community here around fragrance. Today's video is focused on scents that hold up really well in the high heat, and not because they're light. No. This is not about those shy summer fragrances that only do well in close quarters in high heat that are really close to the skin. These are fragrances that you can wear when it gets super hot, but that will still have some presence without offending people. There is quite a variety among the fragrances that I've pulled to share with you today, so hopefully everyone in the audience will find something of interest to them. Before we get started though, as a reminder, listen, there's just so many fragrances that I like to put or want to put in videos like this. However, I have limited myself to, I think, 12 or 13. In the pinned comment, you'll see some other recommendations that I would have liked to mention, but for the sake of time, I'm going to keep it into like that 12 to, I think it's 12 or 13 and an honorable mention or two. So the first one that I want to mention, I believe, is quite the hidden gem. It's called OUD GLACIAL, and this is from Reminiscence. So at the time of filming this video, I've seen this as low as the low 30s, like $30 range, all the way up into the 80 plus range. So I've worn this a few times since I've gotten it, and I really enjoy the freshness of this fragrance. This is really one of those truly fresh summer fragrances in that it features a very heavy and prominent note of mint. If you've ever crushed mint between your fingers, or if you think about how mint bubblegum tastes in your mouth, it creates this coolness, this automatic, like cool, crisp type of texture in terms of taste and in terms of smell that you get in this fragrance. As this starts to dry down, you also get some muskiness. There's a little bit of woodiness and some other flowers that are in the sort of cool range. I think it's iris, some of those purple types of flowers. But the main player in here is that gorgeous mint. And it's so fun in that way. I will say this does have a touch of earthiness. There's a patchouli note here, although it's not like a super pronounced patchouli. It helps to ground the fragrance a little bit so it's not sort of just hovering in the, super fresh, cool, minty space. But a delight to wear and really great for that fresh out of the shower feeling, but also having some type of depth to it from the woodiness, the patchouli, and the musk together. Mint is the primary player here, so you do need to enjoy that to explore this fragrance. Up next is a fragrance that I actually got a number of surprising compliments on during a work setting that I was in the past few months. I was kind of shocked. I mean, I don't go out to many places where other people are going to be able to comment on my fragrance. So when they do, I take note of it because I work from home. I'm here with my family. They're usually like the harshest critics of my fragrance. People don't like chase me down in supermarkets and that sort of thing. But then again, I spray a lot, but I don't like over spray where people an aisle over are going to be smelling me. I mean, I guess sometimes I do. But anyway, that's a whole nother video. This next fragrance is called PEAR INC from Juliette Has. I remember distinctly spraying this on and then maybe like 30 minutes or so later, stepping into an elevator. And there were a couple of gentlemen in the elevator, one of whom smelled really fabulous himself. And I was trying to get up the nerve to ask him what he was wearing so that I could share it with my husband. And I finally did. And he said he was wearing Y by YSL, and then he was like, but you smell really great too. They were speaking in a foreign language that I didn't understand, the two men. And he said, we were just asking each other if we should ask you what you're wearing. And it was this. And then other people in the office commented on it as well. Really lovely, like a freshly cut pear. And I want to share, when you think about a fruit note, there is a range for how the fruit note can smell, in terms of intensity, sure, like light to really deep in that particular scent, but also when you think about fruit and the fact that when you pick it or right before you pick it, it maybe is on the like greener side, and I don't mean green smelling, I mean as in it hasn't matured yet, all the way to super overly ripened fruit, like a banana, the life of a banana. The way a banana smells when it still is under ripened and has a little bit of greenness, that's a very different type of scent experience than when it has all of the brown spots on it and it's about to go bad and it's overly sweet. So when you think about that, the pear in this fragrance is not the most pronounced juicy pear like you get maybe in some other fragrances that are famous for their pear note. This is a crisper, more young pear that has not had the opportunity to over ripen yet. So on the spectrum, it's been picked, and maybe you're just getting it off of the fruit stand, and you cut it, and it's a fresh, like crisp pear smell, although not super pronounced, because it also mixes with ambroxan. There's a muskiness to this and a little light woodiness, almost like in the molecular sense, that combines together for a really fresh, happy, uplifting scent experience. One that I think has moderate projection and moderate longevity. You know, I wore it in the morning. It didn't take me into the evening. I did have to reapply before I went out to dinner, but it was fine until maybe like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then it really sort of settled down into a very light skin scent. But one that gets noticed, and I think is a very crowd-pleasing fragrance, PEAR INC. This next one is a crowd pleaser here in my house, and it is available on Joma's shop, and you might get your best price there. It's Delina La Rosée. Can we take a minute to talk about just how precious this bottle is? I have Oriana, which I like too. That's the sort of darker, deeper pink one, like fuchsia almost. This is the lightest, most delicate pink. Gosh, I'm not interested in Valaya, but I like the bottle. And so I'm like, do I want to try it again? Because this is the craziness that goes on in my, in my mind. That clear bottle for the latest release, I'm going to call it Valaya. You say Valaya, whatever, Valaya, is so pretty that I'm really interested in it, more so for the bottle, because I sampled it and I liked it and it was nice, but it wasn't compelling enough for me. Anyhow, this fragrance here, Delina La Rosée. I don't have the original Delina. I do not have Delina exclusive, but I do have dupes of that, which I like the exclusive version. This one completes the trilogy, I guess, and a lot of people have all three. It is, if you like a light, crisp fragrance that is more watery in nature, this is a very aquatic fragrance. Like if you think about fragrance as having texture and heft, this is almost like a see-through fragrance. Not in that it's light, but there's something about the texture that maybe it's the bottle that makes me think about the word see-through, transparent, even though if it's a veil of transparent fragrance, I'm like painting myself into a strange description corner here, but if you think about like a veil of smell, the veil is a thick veil, but you can see through it. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. But rose and peony are the key players in this fragrance with a beautiful light muskiness. It's very fresh and very aquatic. And what I'll say about this fragrance is when you spray it on, you have the impression that it's not going to be super projecting or long lasting. I mean, you do get like a nice scent bubble for yourself. But what I like about this is that it in fact does, but not in an obnoxious way, project quite far out. Someone from across the table could smell it on me, and it lasted quite a long time. This one took me through most of the day and was a big hit in my house. Everyone here seemed to like this and thought that I smelled good. When the kids are coming up to me, smelling me and saying, "Hey, you smell good." Listen, that is a really huge win here. So Delina La Rosée, gorgeous. Take a look, and it is on Joma's shop. You can use the link below to shop for it if you so choose. In fact, the next sort of handful of fragrances that I'm going to mention are available on Joma's shop, just so that I don't have to keep repeating it. And so let's talk about a fragrance that I can't tell you how much I adore this fragrance. A lot. Let's just say a lot. And it's another one that was a compliment getter at a work event and that I feel so good when I put on. It's Tom Ford Soleil Neige. Soleil Neige. So this is as much a beautiful fragrance for the doldrums of winter when you want something bright and crisp and comforting at the same time, that matches the name of this. So Soleil Neige is sun on snow. So if you imagine that and the uplifting, bright, fresh vibe that gives you, translate that into summer heat and it works well there too. This is another one that got lots of compliments. Did I say that already? At a work event. Let me say it again because I didn't spray a whole lot of this. I'm very conscious when I am at events with other people to spray lightly. I sprayed this about 4 times under clothing and I was wearing a sweater. And about an hour later, you know, people can always smell your fragrance right when you first spray it. And then the true test is waiting a while and seeing if people still smell it. So an hour later, I'm walking down the hallway at work and people are 50 feet behind me going, "Who's wearing that beautiful perfume? Where's that smell coming from?" It was this with only 4 or 5 sprays, but it was like that, like Pepe Le Pew, like in the cartoons, the like waft of air because it's light, but it does have presence to it. More than anything, this is a citrus, a really nice, sweet citrus. There's vanilla in the fragrance as well, and a little bit of floral. So imagine the three of those together. It is one of the most simple yet sophisticated smells that I have in my collection, and quite addictive. I can't imagine why people would not like this. I know there are folks that are just not into it, or they think it's too simplistic. I disagree. I think it is simply beautiful, or beautifully simple, or maybe both. But anyway, check this out. It's one of those that I think is super versatile for all seasons. Winter, when you want that comforting, clean smell, and in the summer, when you want a clean, happy, fresh, refreshing smell, but that also has a little bit of sweetness and some femininity to it without being overly sweet or cloying. This is just, it is perfection. It is a really fantastic fragrance. This one is a little bit more on the mature end. So if you are a younger viewer, or if you're someone who prefers fragrances that have a really youthful feel, I'm not saying this smells vintagey. I'm saying that the floral that's in here is not for everyone. And I'm talking about ASHORE from Amouage, ASHORE from Amouage. First of all, I love, love, love the bottles from Amouage. There's something about the proportions of them, the curved edges, the way that the cap is magnetic and kind of twists itself back to the front. Anyway, we're not here to talk about bottles, but I love the bottles, even though I don't get along with all of the scents. I have about 5 in my collection that I really, really do love, though. And ASHORE is quickly becoming one of those loves. I really liked it when I got it a lot. What am I talking about with the smell that I think maybe people that want more youthful scents would not be into? There is a very pronounced jasmine note in here. And it's not the jasmine that's like an alien that is a little bit on the, what I call a sexy jasmine. This is jasmine, like true to form. Almost imagine jasmine straight from the plant crushed into an oil. You get that type of jasmine really pronounced in this fragrance. In that sense, it's a little bit indolic. If you're not familiar with what that word means, it means that the fragrance, the floral in here smells a little bit like on the, I wouldn't even say decaying side, because it's not like a rotten type of a smell, but it has a little bit of unpleasantness to it. I think this fragrance is also quite summery in the sense that it's salty. It gives you the impression of a little bit of oceanic air, like a touch of that, more jasmine than that, but you do get a little bit of ocean vibe from this fragrance, a little saltiness. And there's a couple of spices deep in the background, including what I perceive to be like a peppery note. I do think that this is just a really delightful feminine summer fragrance. So if you're into jasmine, a jasmine lover, this is to me a must try. If you're someone who tends to stay away from fragrances with jasmine in them, and you're just looking for that special jasmine that's not going to offend you, this is not for you, okay? But I have to say, one thing about Amouage fragrances is people are going to smell you. They are going to project, and they last pretty long. Some last longer than others. This is one that will take you through a good workday. Next is a fragrance that I actually gave away at one point because I wasn't sure that I loved it enough to keep, and I missed it. That doesn't happen a lot for me. That has happened with maybe 3 fragrances in the many decades that I have been enjoying fragrances. And this is the best of the line that I'm going to talk about. And this is from the Hermes Jardin line. And this is Un Jardin Sur Le Nil. Un Jardin Sur Le Nil. So this comes in a bigger version. I have a 50 ml or 1.6 ounce, but it comes in a full bottle. And it also comes as little as a ½ an ounce, which I believe is in the travel spray form, if I remember correctly. And Joma Shop carries the entire range if you want to buy it big or buy it little. The fragrance here is such an interesting one. It opens like a really pronounced, almost a sweet grapefruit. And the thing that bothered me about this fragrance originally, that I've kind of come to actually enjoy rather than it bothering me, is that it has a mango note. And when I think of mango, I think of the mangoes that I've had as a child, the mango that I had on my family's property in Puerto Rico, where you get it off the tree, it is ripe, you can eat it right then and there. You've got all of like the pulp and juiciness like all over your face and fingers and all of that. And it's really almost hyper sweet. That is what I think of when I think of mango. The mango in here is a little bit on the less ripe end, like not quite as sweet as what I envisioned mango to smell like. This is a little bit more on the tart end with that opening of grapefruit that lasts quite a bit, and then the mango comes in, and it does have a little bit of sweetness to it, but it's not that overly ripe, sugary, dripping down your face kind of, summer fruit juice type of experience. Not at all. This does have a musk in it that I think is pretty pronounced. It's a lighter musk in texture. It's not a super heavy musk. For example, like some of the Tiziana Terenzi fragrances have a really deeper, denser, thicker musk. This one is a very light, thin musk. Nonetheless, it is in there, so if you're not a musk lover, keep that in mind. And it does in some way have a little bit of a watery aspect to it, so I don't know that aquatic is an accord that's associated with this, but I associate it with this because of the way that it dries down. So an enjoyable fragrance, and one that you would wear if you wanted to smell more in the tart direction, but still have a little muskiness and sweetness as well. Really interesting for sure, and one to try out even if you end up not loving it, just for the reference point. I have tried the others in the Jardin line and they're beautiful. This is so far right now my favorite. I would be remiss if I didn't put in this video a fragrance that maybe is a little bit overhyped, but definitely deserves some flowers. And it is Musk Therapy from Initio. This is a fragrance that I think really shines well in high heat, late spring into high heat of summer, and maybe even early fall. Definitely wearable in winter if you want something lighter and brighter and clean. However, in terms of when its season is, it's definitely for me in the high heat. This is a fragrance that I think I would describe as really clean and crisp and almost like a professional musk. I mean, it's called Musk Therapy, so it's very much characterized by a pronounced musk, but it's a light, bright musk. There's bergamot and orange. So the citruses in here are uplifting and bright and happy and very sunny. This fragrance has a very sunny smell to it while having substance and depth from the musk. So as it dries down, you get a little bit more of that pronounced muskiness and the sandalwood, and the citruses maybe fade away in the mid a little bit more than I would like. And so that's why I think it's a little bit overhyped, but they're still there. You still can smell them. But the opening of this is so bright and beautiful. You almost want that really pronounced citrus in the opening to remain all the way through the life of the fragrance. It does, but it sort of becomes, instead of being a front player, like right out in front, first string, it now kind of sits back in the fragrance when you get to the mid and into the base of the fragrance, along with the musks and the sandalwood here. Nonetheless, I think this is a really great one that still sticks around for a while. It does get a little bit softer in terms of scents, some of the other ones that I've compared this to. I do wish the opening of this was a bit more pronounced. So in that sense, you know, it's a tiny bit overhyped. So this still deserves some praise as a great fragrance for the summer that has some presence. Others are going to smell it on you. You're going to enjoy it on yourself, and no one is going to be offended by it. I really, really, really have enjoyed this next fragrance, and it's one that has surprised me in terms of how much it projects and other people can smell it, even when I think that it has died down. It has not. And this is the gorgeous Greenwich Village from Bond Number 9. Love the color on this. On camera, it looks deeper blue. In person, it's more like a greenish blue. Super pretty bottle if you're into that kind of a color. But what does the fragrance smell like? Yes, this does have a little bit, or a lot of bit, of that Baccarat Rouge 540 vibe. The difference here is that this fragrance comes across a little bit more fruity to me and a little bit more floral, and there's a distinct freshness from this fragrance that I don't really get from BR 540. I remember wearing this on a drive and loving rolling the window down and having the smell of this sort of waft around with the wind coming into the car all around. My son really enjoyed this fragrance on me as well, and he is a hard critic, really, really harsh on the fragrances that I wear. Most of the time he tells me that my fragrances just stink. So for him to say that this was really good and that I smelled, he called it fresh and clean, and he really enjoyed this. So this is a nice one for late spring into deep summer, into the fall. This can take you through the winter as well. It's a really versatile fragrance, but it's a non-offensive fragrance while still having a tremendous amount of presence, of projection, and sillage, and all the things that we love, right? Great longevity on this fragrance as well. Beautiful florals in here, as well as a little bit of fruitiness. It's not a sweet fruitiness. It's a very sort of supporting actor in the fragrance with some muskiness, with a touch of sweetness. It's just like it's all of the things at once and none of the things all at the same time. And it's intriguing in that way. Top tier, top notch fragrance for summertime. So recently I shared a video about the best of my new purchases. So speaking of the best, this one was in that video and I went on and on about it there. So I'll link it below if you want a fuller description. I'll keep this one short. This is from Zoologist and it's called Snowy Owl. How cute is this? Is this what do you call this? A capelet, whatever that is that the owl is wearing. This is a minty, it opens up minty and fresh and a little bit musky. Someone described it in the comments as having a really dry opening that almost choked them. And I think that that's interesting. There are some fragrances that do that. So I don't get that experience, but I know what that person means. And I wanted to share that. And then this smells so much like the combination of the freshest filling of hamster cage, like cedar shavings. I mean, in the freshest way possible, with some muskiness and a little bit of coconut, like a dry coconut, and a little bit of mintiness. Smells just like fresh, very fresh, clean bird feathers. Love this. Yes, great in the winter, but I'm putting it here because this has a freshness to it that I think is really lovely to wear in the heat of summer. So I wanted to give this a mention here. So this one is an oldie but a goodie. It's been around for a while, but you all, this remains one of the most beautiful fragrances that I have ever smelled. This is Lodas from Issey Miyake. This fragrance reminds me so much of getting ready to go out with the girls in late college and into post-college years. So we're looking at like the early 2000s there at that point, right? Into my late 20s, even early 30s. One of the most intoxicating, sexy smells ever. Very aquatic, has some florals. I think it's rose and maybe peony also. That seems to be a theme here, right? And definitely some very watery aspects to this and a beautiful musk that's like a background player. It's almost like the musk is a pillow, a cloud upon which the floral and watery notes sit. A lotus note in here. This is probably one of the most difficult fragrances for me to describe because it crosses so many different categories, but I think this is one of those fragrances that really you can wear year round and smell fantastic, but particularly in the summer and in an evening heat is one of the most intoxicating, alluring, sexy smells that will garner a lot of attention around you. I do want to mention that this is one of the fragrances that some people may find a little bit overpowering or cloying, but I think the majority of people who have smelled this and like this fragrance will agree that nonetheless, it's beautiful for the heat of summer. And in fact, maybe shines even more then because it will be the one in the room that captures everyone's attention. Check this one out. Is it on Jomas Shop? Let me check. It sure is on Jomas Shop. And they have two sizes. They have right under an ounce and then the full 3.3 ounce. So, and really great prices. So again, you can check out the link below. So this next one is one that I think people would probably say is a little vintagey and maybe not modern. I don't care. I don't think it smells vintage, but I do think that it smells a little bit more mature and it can be cloying, especially if you overspray, but it's a classic and it is beautiful. It is white linen from Estee Lauder. Yes, it's been reformulated. So let's go on and take a moment to lament and cry together about that. And let's go on. Okay, because it's still a really pretty fragrance. This particular bottle, as you see, is nearly still full. Why is that? Because you only need a couple of sprays of this fragrance at the most to carry you through most of the day. This is an aldehyde bomb of a fragrance. It does have a little bit of woodiness in it also. If you look up the notes for this, it's what I call a kitchen sink fragrance, in that it has like every note known to man. So in that sense, you can't really describe it from the notes except to say that it smells ultra clean, like the most pronounced soapy smell in a sophisticated way. This is elegant and gorgeous and leaves a beautiful trail behind you. My most vivid memory of this is waiting on, if you've been to New York or in Chicago, they have them too, the elevated trains where you're up above ground on a platform outside waiting. And I remember in the summer in the 80s, this woman, it was late 80s, early 90s, somewhere in that time frame, this woman came by me and she had all white. She was in a beautiful flowing white gown and she walked by me and this smell, which was super popular at the time, was wafting off of her. And I remember going, oh my God, she smells amazing. Really beautiful. And you can find this in oil form too. I don't think Estee Lauder sells the oil, but there are other off-brand oils that just look up online, like Estee Lauder white linen oil, and you can use that underneath this if you would like. You don't need that. But anyway, a super clean aldehyde bomb of a fragrance that's tempered a little bit by some woody notes and some white florals and other kinds of florals. There's a bunch of stuff going on in here, but by and large, an aldehyde fragrance that is like one of the queens of aldehyde fragrances. I mean, people talk about Chanel No. 5 being an aldehyde queen. Yes, but I say this is better than Chanel No. 5. They're different. You can't really compare those two. This is definitely more in the clean laundry, clean soap direction versus Chanel No. 5, which has some other things going on with it as well. Also on Joma Shop. Okay, so the next one is not available on Joma Shop, but it is available on Fragrance Net. And I would say when you're shopping on Fragrance Net, go in through Google and make sure that you're getting the 37% off coupon code. It's the best way to shop Fragrance Net. And I have purchased, let me just pause to say, some people are really nervous to purchase off of discount sites. You should shop wherever you feel comfortable shopping, period. Don't let anybody out here on YouTube try to pressure you into shopping here or there, not even through their affiliate links. You shop where you feel comfortable putting your money, period, end of story. You earn it, you spend it where you want. Okay, but Fragrance Net is a place that I have shopped for quite literally hundreds of fragrances at this point. I've only ever had one bad experience on Fragrance Net, and it was a vintage fragrance that was being sold that maybe was a little bit past its due date, if you know what I mean. It was a little bit, it kind of had gone a little bit, I wouldn't say bad, it just didn't quite smell as fresh as I would have wanted it to. But in fairness, that was about a 20-year-old fragrance. Everything else that I've ever purchased from them, I have had this many problems, 0 problems. Anyway, go in through Google and get your discount. So anyway, if white linen seems like a little bit too sharp in terms of the aldehydes, you might want to check out this one. And it's available on Fragrance Net for a steal. It looks like it's on there for like $122. These normally retail for somewhere in the high 2s all the way up to $400, depending on what the demand is looking like. The maker is LM Parfums, Laurent Mazzoni. And this is called, I didn't tell y'all what it's called, Chemise Blanche. I sampled this a number of months ago and thought it was just fabulous. This is exactly what the name implies, a crisp, white, pressed shirt kind of a fragrance. So if you think about your button-down work shirt, and ladies, we have button-down white shirts too, with beautiful feminine lines to them. The main difference between this and white linen is that this has a sweetness to it, whereas white linen is a very structured, crisp, almost cold fragrance in some ways. This one has some warmth. There's tonka bean in this fragrance. The muskiness in here is a little bit different than the really structured approach that white linen has to the way that it's composed. This is a little bit softer around the edges. So if you think about white linen as being rigid with clean, sharp lines, this one has fuzzier, softer lines and is a little bit easier of a wear in terms of going into an office or maybe being around people who are triggered by fragrances, but you still want a clean, fresh, crisp fragrance. Here you go with some softness. It's really, really a nice fragrance. Very nicely done. One of my newer favorite purchases of 2023, and let me just say before I talk about this, many people will not like this at all, especially our ladies in the audience who like feminine fragrances. This one is unisex. Maybe some might argue that it's a little bit masculine. And there are other aspects of this that I think might be off-putting for people. But I wanted to share this for those of you that have a more adventurous nose and you want to smell different and you like an earthy fragrance. That's the big thing I want to share, that this fragrance has a real grounded, earthy presence to it. This is from Molton Brown. This is orange and bergamot. This is the Eau de Parfum concentration. So Molton Brown has an Eau de Toilette line and an Eau de Parfum line for almost, I think, all of the fragrances that it offers. This is the Eau de Parfum concentration. The fragrance is composed mostly the fragrance is composed mostly of, for me, bitter citruses. Think of when you bite into grapefruits and it gives you like that bitter and or maybe even tart kind of a taste. You kind of pucker up, and it doesn't have any sugar. There's nothing sugary or sweet about this fragrance. It definitely has a bitterness to it, but it's a bright, fresh citrus in here also. And it gives me like a wet dirt type of scent. And I'm talking about the nice, earthy, wet dirt smell after a rain. That combined, I don't think there's patchouli in here, but I do get this like faint type of patchouli feel, like that dirty, chocolatey kind of a smell as well. Very much on the earthy side. And I love that this has a shower gel and a lotion that accompanies it. I have the shower gel. In fact, I'm looking at it off camera here because I need to put it in the shower. I haven't bought the lotion only because I find myself reaching for lotions less and less as I get older. I'm just impatient and very rarely wear lotion these days. Sometimes, but not always. But anyway, if you like an earthy fragrance that is also bright and happy and uplifting, almost like in that meditative way, like that spa kind of essential oil way, this is one to check out, Orange and Bergamot. And it has really nice projection and presence. You won't smell like anyone else with this fragrance on. And some people may hate that about this because they might find it a little bit bizarre or, like I said, too earthy, you know, for them to get down with. But I'm into this kind of fragrance and I really like this a lot. And I think that the bottle is quite interesting, unique, and different in comparison to some of the other offerings on the market. This last fragrance, I'm afraid to say, is an honorable mention because I don't know where to tell you to get it. So I'm hoping that those of you in the audience that know where this is available will drop it in the comments for us because it's worth checking out. This is called Lodas Seychelles. This is from Coco de Mer Cosmetics. I found this on FragranceNet a year and a half or two ago or something like that for a steal of a price. The entire line from Coco de Mer Cosmetics was on the website. Coco de Mer is a nut that looks like, it's a fruit, nut fruit that looks like coconut, but is in this shape. It looks like a butt. It looks like a butt. I mean, you can look it up online. I'm not lying to you. Anyway, this fragrance is a lemongrass smell more than anything else. If you've had lemongrass, it's both like a deep, almost like a green tea smell, along with a grassiness and with the freshness of lemon, all sort of smashed together into one scent. Very, very sharp opening on this, like almost off-putting for literally about 15 seconds until the lemongrass starts to show up. And then it's this really interesting, unique, different smell. Think of creamy lemongrass is the best way that I can describe this fragrance. And I appreciate that it's very different than anything else that I have in my collection. I do think the bottle is a little bit quirky. I don't love the booty top there, but it is the Coco de Mer, you know, thing that it's representing there. But the bottle has a lot of presence. And anyway, the fragrance is really unique and different and a fabulous one for summer when you want to smell different than all your other seasons. That lemongrass, beautiful thing in here is really just delightful and different and sweetens up ever so slightly as it dries down. However, I don't know where to tell you to get this. So please help us out. I've done a Google search and come up with nothing, but would love to know if any of you have any idea where to get this. So before we go, please drop in the comments your favorite summer fragrance that has some oomph to it, has a little bit of presence, a little bit of zhuzh, and isn't afraid to shine in high heat. But the key thing is without offending other people. That's important, without being cloying in the heat. Hope you enjoyed this style of video. Let me know if the selections here hit the mark for you or not, or if you have other recommendations. Take care, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.